Welcome to The Most Mindset, where you'll hear real conversations about mindset, mortgages, and mastery for loan officers and originators who have outgrown being undervalued and underpaid. Here's your host, Michael Most.
All right. Welcome, Mike, to the Most Mindset podcast. Really appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, thank
You
you.
and I have known each other for quite some time now, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we start with just tell a little bit about yourself, how you got into the business, maybe even if you remember where or how we met would be fun. So give us just a little bit of background on you and our relationship.
Okay, I'll start kind of how I got in the business. I was going back like 20 years. I don't think anyone really tries to get into the mortgage business. I think you kind of find yourself somehow in the mortgage business. So I was, working in restaurants. I was actually bartending. I was working to like 2 a.m. and my current wife, was my girlfriend at the time, she, kept saying, you got to find a real job, find a real job. She was sending me these like monster.com, like job offers. Right. And so I got this one and it was like, make $100,000, no experience, come on, apply. So I went in and I applied, and basically it was really strange. It was like, do you have any mortgage experience? And if you said yes, they wouldn't hire you. So I said, no, I didn't have any mortgage experience. And then basically it was a day job. I could kind of do that during the day and work my night job. And it turned out to be a mortgage job with a branch off of AmeriQuest back in the heyday, like 05, 06. And what they would do is they would get people who had no idea what they're doing and give them scripts and just have them dial for dollars. You're making 200, 300 calls a day. And you just got your butt kicked on the phone every single day. It was like a boot camp. I had no idea what a mortgage was. I didn't know what taxes and insurance were. I had no idea. But once you're kind of thrown in the fire like that, you really kind of learned, what you're doing. You actually kind of learn the business really fast. And we were doing like kind of crazy subprime loans and really learned the business and kind of helped me kind of jump to the next step, which was becoming a broker down the road.
So let's time this a little bit. So you're talking about you getting to this job. So you and Amy were dating, right? As boyfriend and girlfriend. And then you is what 2005 you applied for this job?
Yeah, this was probably March, April 2005. And I worked there for about 6 months and we were just getting our butts kicked by brokers like all the time. So a guy in my office and he had a friend who had a mortgage broker shop down in Orange County. I lived in Ventura County, so did he. And so we both decided to just kind of give our notice and quit. And we joined this broker shop down in Orange County. We were driving 2 hours a day to and from. So 4 hours in the car together and doing the same thing, dialing for dollars, calling 200, 300 calls a day. But we learned the broker model. And that really kind of like showed us the light of like, wow, this is how the mortgage business works. You can make money, you get good deals. It kind of propelled us to like the next step in the business.
So you get in 2005. The boom really starts in 01 going into 02. So now we're like heavy in the boom. The first company you work for is an independent mortgage bank, right?
No, they're actually a broker shop. So they were a mortgage
the first
broker.
place that you left, you said was
Yes,
America.
correct.
Right. So they were an IMB?
Correct.
Okay, so you're working for an independent mortgage bank. It's not really working out. You're dialing for dollars. You're not really getting any stick factor. So then you guys decide, look, we know this guy. We're going to go try out this place, which is a brokerage, different than IMB. And you travel 2 hours a day, right? Or is it 2 hours each way, you said?
2 hours each way, yeah. So about 4
You're
hours a
traveling
day.
4 hours a day. Isn't that interesting compared to like today when we're talking 2025? Things are so remote. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's working remote and like back then, but not to age ourselves here, but at the same time, like I had a similar experience where I was living in New York, but I was in Rockland County and we had to go to Midtown Manhattan every day. And I was at least 3 hours in the car. And it's fascinating as to why they needed us to be in a car, drive for hours and get to this office to do computer and face work. Yeah, non-face work, do like computer and phone calls. But things have really evolved. It'll be funny that our kids, as they grow up, are going to be like, why wouldn't you work remote? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So quite a commitment. I'm assuming you gave up the bartending then. Now you're doing this full time.
Yeah. I gave it the bartending, doing that full time. And then the Orange County thing had lasted about 2 months. I mean, it was literally just like draining. And so I looked for another broker shop that was closer to my house, and I got latched on with a company called Elite Financial, and they had ties to builders. So doing the same exact thing, but I wasn't down for dollars anymore. I kind of had an account assigned to me. I work on the weekends, I was driving from Oxnard Shores over to Lancaster every weekend. So still driving, but it was actually legit business. This was '06 when the builders had lines out the door for the buyers. So it was really good for till like middle of '07 for the most part. But that was where my career kind of really took off, and I really kind of like found a home. I was there for about almost 15 years.
What did you do in the car for some podcasts back then? Were you just a radio guy? Because I want to just segue this into a little bit. You are one of the most organized originators that I know, which is a very big part of your success. So I want to segue into that. How organized were you back then in the car, or what was your organizational skills from the get-go? And then just, how they morphed into where they are today.
Driving out there, this was back when you could burn CDs and you could make your own playlists. So I did a lot of that. There wasn't really, iPods and, that sort of thing out there. So I did a lot of that. I did try some book on tape, and I even tried Spanish CDs and learned Spanish a couple of times, but that didn't last too long.
Are you
But I
fluent
am.
in Spanish?
What's that?
Can you speak Spanish today?
I just know the bad words. I went to school at Rio Mesa out there, so I know the bad words, and I can get by a little bit. But I'm very old school when it comes to organization. I still make a list every single day as far as things that I have to get done. The clients, I put it in importance, most important at the very top. Work my way down, and you don't cross off everything every day, but it really helps to not forget things and things don't fall through the cracks. I'm big on lists. We spoke about this the other day too. I have Post-it notes all over my desk here. Things stay on top of mind, and then as I knock them out, throw them away.
Now, where did that come from? It's obviously a personality trait on most levels, but what experience would you say you draw that from? Obviously, you were bartending right before mortgages. Bartending doesn't have any pen and paper. So that's not where you learned that kind of skill from. Was it back in college? Always as a kid? Was it something that you learned from your dad, an uncle, someone like, where'd you learn that organizational skill of like make a task, write a task, cross off a task? Where does all that stem from?
It's funny you bring that up. I never even thought about that until right now. My dad was big on lists. So growing up, my dad always had a yellow legal pad with a bunch of things on there. And maybe that's where I got it from. It must be because I've always just kind of done that, and it's worked for me. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
I just used it, and people have said, "Oh, try this CRM program and all these kind of things." And the list just worked for me.
Right. Now, when you went to college, what did you want to be when you were a kid growing up? Because, like, you started out, not everyone wants to be a mortgage guy when they're growing up. We've done a couple of these podcasts now, and a couple of other people, interestingly, there were one or two that were like, this was their path, which is very, not the norm. More people are like you and I that were heading somewhere else first. What was your dream job when you were a kid? What'd you go to college for? Like, what did you think you might end up doing? Obviously, you were bartending just to make side cash and stuff. But what was the initial, maybe it wasn't a dream or goal, but original path?
Actually, I didn't really go to college. After high school, I did a couple junior college stints here and there. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really trying to figure that out. Growing up when I was young, I might want to be a chiropractor or something like that. That was my goal. But, after high school, it's one of my biggest regrets is not going to college. Everyone has their path, and I was always really good at math in school, so I'm not surprised I kind of ended up in a finance industry of some kind, but yeah, you never know where your path's going to take you. And, but not going to college has been something I've always kind of preached to my kids is, with my wife and I, it was never a choice. Like you're going to go to college. So.
Wasn't that interesting? Because a compliment to our industry, right? Someone without a college degree, it does not require a college degree. It does not even require a GED to get into our business, right? And the barrier to entry is relatively low. So therefore, you do get a lot of riffraff in what we do. However, guys like yourself that have really built themselves up and grown their business because you do have a skill set, you do have a maturity, you are good with math, you're organized, I mean, this has been at least 15, 20 years for you now, right? You're coming up on your 20-year mark and you've made a career out of this, right? So let's talk about like every day you come in and you do loans and you're a pretty even keeled kind of guy. What do you love about this business that like really motivates you to do this? And you never considered another career path and you haven't changed jobs in the middle. What keeps you going on a day-to-day basis? What do you love about this job?
What's crazy about this job is that we're all really self-employed. We really are. And you make out of this business what you put into it, and it's your effort. And so going back to, not going to school and that sort of thing, I've been employed except for 2 weeks in my life since I was 10 years old. I had a paper out from 10 years old and worked every single day. And so I think it comes down to work ethic. I learned work ethic really early as far as, just like you just got to hustle, you got to put the work in. And if you don't put the work in, you're not going to get the rewards in most cases. And kind of going to the tail end of your question there, we're self-employed and you just have to hustle and you really get out of it what you put into it. If you sit there at your desk just waiting for the phone to call, ring, it's not going to happen. You have to get out there, shake some trees, kiss babies, shake some hands. You got to really get out there and get uncomfortable. Big on going out there and being a rah-rah guy, but we're in sales. When it's all said and done, you have to sell yourself. And, and as far as the work ethic, it's working on the weekends. It's answering the phone when you don't want to answer the phone. It's taking the tough calls when there's bad news. Because as you know, we get a lot of bad news in this business. But the beauty of it is too, we get to find solutions for that. Kind of circling over to the broker side of things, coming back to being a broker after being out of the broker world for about 5 years, just having the options and the flexibility has been a game changer. Kind of getting back to it.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear a fun story that you've had over your time in the career. But before we go to that, tell me a little bit about the different models. So you came on originally, you worked for an IMB that we keep referring to as an independent mortgage banker, right? And then you went over to broker, and then you've come back and you've played both sides of the fence. You and I both met at an IMB, and then you even did a little stint at the retail banks, right? Like big institution banks. Walk
Yeah.
me through a little bit of like some of that back and forth, the pluses and minuses of each, but why you love the current broker model.
Yeah. Okay. So I hooked up with Elite Financial and I was there for about 15 years. And we were a wholesale broker over there. I loved it. I loved the flexibility. And I left my broker was having some health issues and he was kind of closing the shop down. So it's not like I was unhappy and I wanted to leave. It was kind of like, hey guys, I can't do this anymore. Find someplace else to go. And then I was out there looking for something and came across Guaranteed Rate, which is a IMB. That's kind of where we met, was Guaranteed Rate. What they were pitching was fantastic. I liked the sound of it. The owner, Victor, he's a great guy. I mean, like
Very dynamic.
yeah. So I went over to Guaranteed Rate for, I think I was there for about 3.5 years. Solid company, nothing bad to say about it. The market was slow. I was looking for a change and someone kind of sold me on going over to big bank, US Bank, which I've always said I would never do. But I thought, hey, let's give it a shot. Why not?
Well, walk
So
me through some of that. What is that transition to US Bank like? Because now you've done IMB, you've done broker, and now you go to US Bank. Just go a little deeper. When you get to what's that like? Is that a culture shock? What is that?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, that was my first time going, and Guaranteed Rate was a pretty big company, but going to US Bank, that's big, big corporate. And nothing bad to say about US Bank. Solid company, great people there. But on the loan side of things, you really feel like a caged animal a little bit when you know what's out there, especially coming from the broker world and coming into the cage. You know what's out there and you're like, oh my gosh, if I only had this or I missed that, So it is a bit of a culture shock, kind of just being limited. I always kind of tell people it's like having vanilla ice cream versus having 31 flavors. So you're really kind of
It's a
limited
great
on what you
example.
can offer. I mean, when they have great vanilla ice cream, don't get me wrong, but we have now 5 flavors of vanilla and all the other 31 flavors. It's really just a game changer being back on the broker side of things. And one of the biggest changes from when I left the broker world to where it's at now is the non-QM side of things. It's the non-traditional type mortgages like the DSCR loans, bank statement loans. Back when I was my original broker spot, and it's not that long, it's 5 years ago, the spread between your normal 30-year fixed rate and the non-QM loan was like 2% above that rate. And it was at a cost of like 2 points. It was just like no one ever did them. And if you did them, you felt guilty for giving them that loan. It was like so bad, And when people were saying, hey, come back over to the broker world, you have non-QM, I was kind of like, oh, I don't even care about non-QM. It's a waste of time. But since I've been back over here the last 6-7 months, it's like a third of my business. Like the spread on the rate on these is maybe 0.5%. on the rate. In most cases, maybe 1% if it's kind of a crazy deal. And there's, a lot of no point options. It's really a game changer as far as having that in your arsenal to offer people, because looking back, I think I missed out on a lot of business by not having that, having that in my back pocket.
And that flexibility, especially
Yeah.
in Southern California, where that is by far the vast majority of people are working in self-employment or self-employment type secondary income and things of that nature.
Uh-huh.
As you know, I come from New York. I'm here over 10 years. So when I was at the big banks back in New York, everything to your point was the most vanilla. But I'm working in New York City, in Manhattan, doing a few $100 million worth of production. I don't remember ever seeing a borrower that had less than a 760 to 800 credit score. I
Right.
didn't have a single borrower that wasn't on a W-2 at some financial institution. Our
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge in New York was, well, they switched from base to bonus to RSU. Like that was so complicated when they're working for, let's say, Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, whoever they're working for.
Right.
They're all Fortune 500 companies. They're all making tons of money in financial. And when I came out, my funniest story, and then I'd love to hear yours, is I'm like coming out to LA before I knew I was going to move here. And I reached out to a couple of people that I might have known and whatnot. And an escrow officer actually introduces me to a potential client to do a refinance. And I called the client and I said, hey, my name is Michael. I'm here. At the time, I was at a big institution bank. I think it was Citibank or something like that. And the borrower tells me, okay, I'm not going to be able. I said, well, can you send me your tax returns? And the borrower says, I'm not going to be able to send you my tax returns. I was like, why? And he said, there's nothing on there that's of use to you. And I said, well, okay, so talk to me about like your income. Like, where do you make your income from? And he says the following words to me. He says, if you knew who I was in the 80s, you wouldn't ask that question. Now, I'm a New Yorker. I also have a different personality type. And I'm like, that was 20 years ago. Like I'm talking to him now, like 2013 or so. And I'm like, who cares what you did in the 80s?
Yeah.
But in my head, I'm like, okay, so do you have royalties or stuff like that? He's like, I'm very famous and you would want to give me a loan because of who I am. And I remember that being my welcome to LA, where people were like, well, if you know who I am, you should give me a loan, right?
Right. Yeah.
And being like, I hung up the phone, I was like, wow, that guy's off his rocker. And
Right.
today, how many of those deals we do because we're able to structure them, to your point, on the broker channel that we're on with non-QM products, people that have residual income from royalties, people that do have cash that's been saved up over the years, stuff that I was not able to do in some of that vanilla stuff.
Yeah.
Share with me a story that was either very funny or like your aha moment, years back when you were in this platform.
As far as funny, I mean, I think back like where it's a very small industry, right? That we're in, that I've been in this 20 years. You've been there, I think, over 20 years, and you can't burn bridges. You got to be really like, just we're all on the same team when it's all said and done. We're all fighting for a dollar. So this is kind of a funny story. We were looking, my wife and I and my kids were all looking for this one neighborhood we wanted to live in, and there's an open house in this neighborhood. And so we went there and we just kind of check it out. And there's another lender in there with the agent, and I don't know why, but maybe, I don't know if you had this feeling too sometimes. There's always like this competitive feeling with a lender sometimes, like who you with or who you with, And so we're in there and we're looking around and there's this lender and we just start talking a little bit about like who he works with. I'm a lender too. And we just start kind of like talking about our programs. And I thought we're just kind of having like a funny, like debate, you know what I mean? And I look around and like my family's gone. Like, where'd they go? Right? They're like outside in the car waiting for me. And I go out there and I'm like, but what happened? They're like, what are you doing in there? I mean, what do you mean? They're like, dude, that guy, we're just arguing about like your rates and programs in front of everybody. You get like awkward. I'm like, I thought we were just having like a debate. And it dawned on me later, like, why are we so competitive sometimes with each other, And I learned a lesson from that. So now if I go into like an open house and it's another lender there, I try to be extra nice. Like we're all on the same team. We're all just hustling. You know what I mean? There shouldn't be any animosity. I try to like get their card and, I just try to be nice about it. But it's funny because like that still comes up with my family these days. Like they still joke around about like, oh, who do you work with? Or I have this program. It's like an inside joke, but it's a small world out there. You just never want to burn a bridge with anybody, especially coming back when I was a broker and coming back around. There's so many reps that I had before that are still doing this, and a lot of them are with different companies now, but it's always, hey, good to hear from you again. And I'm glad I just wasn't like a jerk. It's good to come back with like a warm welcome when you see these guys again.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from the way that we are recruited in this business speaks a lot to that. Because someone tries to recruit us in this business, they automatically start with, okay, what company you at? And whatever company you say, the recruiter or guy trying to get you has a minimum list of 2 to 4 things that's wrong with that company. Well, do
Right.
you know they can't do this? Do you know we're better than that at this? Like it becomes a natural conversation banter, if you may,
Hmm.
between us and them. And then that, transfers over to you see a guy at an open house. So I've been in that situation. It's funny because my best friend is in the business and he works at Wells Fargo.
Hmm.
But we have a different funny, like my wife and his wife will always be like, if those 2 guys are in a room together, they just talk shop for hours.
Yeah.
We don't ever argue because we're best friends, but at the
Yeah.
same time, we could talk mortgage for like forever.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, like we'll go to a wedding together or something. And they're like, we can't get these guys to leave. Because
Yeah.
to your point, we kind of do enjoy that side of the business.
Yeah.
And to the maturity side of what you're saying, like it's more enjoyable to enjoy it with people that, right, are on the same page as you instead of being combative, to just not burn a bridge, like you said. I think it's very important. It's a great lesson.
Yeah. And also too, where we're at right now, where you're at would also give you confidence as far as like when you walk into a room, if there's another lender there, I feel confident if someone wants to like ask us questions about what programs, what rates, what we have to offer. We can offer so much compared to, when I was with US Bank and I'd walk into an open house, I kind of had some doubts sometimes as far as like, if they asked me, do you have this program? Do you have, something for a foreign national? I'd be like, no, no, no. It was so vanilla. I lacked confidence. And people have told me now coming into an open house or this and that, they've noticed a change where I'm happier. I'm more confident, so people know when you're happy and when you're not. They can tell, you know what I mean? So it's been a big change coming back to it again. I feel like almost re-energized again, where if I can't lend on it, it can't be lent on, that's how I feel.
Yeah. So I think it goes without saying you really appreciate and like this model from all the models you've been in, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, because similarly, I had a slightly different path than you, but I started IMB. I put in 10 years at the big banks. I think you did US Bank for a short stint. I put in 10 years and I got so used to that super vanilla and having that. And then it was quite a roller coaster for me that I almost needed to step into IMB. That's where you and I met at Guaranteed Rate to get an
Hmm.
understanding. And I remember getting to Guaranteed Rate and being like, okay, we need an exception on this loan. And they were like, a what? And I was like, no, we need like an exception to do this loan with whoever bank. And they were like, no, just take it to the next bank. I was like, why? The best pricing is with bank A. We just need to
Right.
get an exception. And they're like, what are you talking about? There's no exceptions. You have so many different um, flavors, as you would say, and like adapting to that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any of that? So for me, leading to a question, which is, for me, like I came out of the big banks, and at that time, I was doing like $200-300 million worth of annual production, which is a pretty big
Hmm.
number, always at
Yeah.
like the
It's a lot.
top of the pack. And
Yeah.
I got to the IMB world, and I went, which was very humbling for me. I went from like 290. My first year at the IMBs, I barely did 25 million. I did like 1/10
Hmm.
of what I was used to doing. And it
Yeah.
was quite a culture shock for me to learn, to adapt, to shift. Was there any point in your career in the different models where you had to like really start again from scratch? And if you did, what were some of those basic tools that you go to? So someone that's here that's trying to reinvent themselves listening to this,
Hmm.
what would be your tools, your suggestions?
As far as culture shock kind of goes, when I went from being the broker over to Guaranteed Rate, it was right before COVID kind of blew up. So I mean, COVID was so busy. It was an anomaly. It wasn't normal. As far as how I guess smooth the transition was because we got so busy, we didn't really deal with all the stress behind the scenes that were new and new things to learn. Going from Guaranteed Rate over to US Bank was a lot of culture. That took some time to get used to the corporate, the new systems, the structures. That was really kind of like a big learning curve, and I had to really be patient, and I had to really just kind of like really had to kind of dig deep to like hustle. You know what I mean? Uh, and looking back, like I was just like I was really unhappy there. I just felt caged. Kind of being from that outside world coming back in. I feel like I'm free again with the freedom we have here. So I'm sorry, I've kind of forgotten the last part of your question. Where do you want me to end up with this?
Yeah, no, that actually answers this perfectly. Like,
Yeah,
that's the pain and the stuff that you went through. In this model, right, as a broker, you feel just a lot more like you have so many more options in
yeah,
terms of like what you can do and how you can get a deal done, right? So
right.
the reputation out there, or the myth when you talk to a lot of people at the big banks or the IMBs, is that you have no flexibility in the broker model, or you don't control underwriting, or you're always in a black hole. Do you find any of that now that you're here, or would you say that you have the flexibility? What's it like for you if you need to close a loan in 14 days? Like, what do you dispel that myth? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a complete myth. And anyone who says that from the big bank has never left the big bank model. And one thing I did learn over working with U.S. Bank at these meetings, the corporate meetings, when they get together once a month or whatever, everyone there, most people there are from a big bank background. They started at one bank, Chase or B of A, and they just kind of move around within. And I think they're told these myths. They don't know what really goes on the broker side of it. So they're told these things to kind of keep them in that cage. And being on the outside over here, we have so much flexibility. We have the speed. You can talk to underwriters. If there's an issue with one bank, we can take the loan to a different lender. And if it doesn't fit that box, if they don't fit that conventional loan, then we have the non-QM option. And talk about speed. I mean, unheard of. You need to close a loan in 10 days, 14 days. It's a non-issue.
Right. That's amazing. Let's segue here for a second into your relationships with your realtors and stuff, right?
Mhm.
So you kind of have a community, as we always talk about when you and I have conversations together. Tell me how you've built that community, how you continue to farm there, and in terms of farming, like how do you water it? How do you nurture it? How does it grow? What's the methodology behind Mike Yates and what you're doing that has helped you build it, maintain it, and how you look at growing it from here?
Yeah, so I'm in Ventura County, California. I live in Camarillo, pretty much born and raised here. So this is my home. And I've just kind of made this my spot. For the most part, I'll go to a lot of open houses, broker caravans, and I always walk in with a flyer to hand out. But that's just kind of, hey, here's a flyer. But I try to engage with the conversation for 2 or 3, 4 or 5 minutes. Try to make it more personable versus business all the time. You got to build the relationships with these people, and just staying in front of them somehow, some way. I send out a weekly rate email blast to my clients. It's not very informational, just comes, some basics, but it gives the rates. I think staying in front of your people quietly like that, where you're not constantly asking them for something, you just kind of say, hey, I'm here. In case you need me, let me know if I can help out, that sort of thing. So just always being there, being consistent. I've done that email, I think every Friday now for like the last 2.5 years without fail. And so, hopefully people can see that, hey, I'm consistent with what I do and they can depend on me. So, and one thing I learned in the business over the years is two things. You got to tell the truth, whether it's, good news or bad news. You cannot back yourself into a corner with a lie. It never ends well. So I learned that early on, like always tell the truth, and you got to answer your phone. Answer your phone. And if you don't, you got to call them back right away. So if you do those two things, the rest will normally fall into place.
Speaking of your rates, because I always find it fascinating, do you mind showing everyone your rate stacks and a little bit
Jeez.
about that story? Because I think it really defines a lot of your work ethic.
So yeah, so going back to my old school, these are Post-it notes, but this is probably 125 Post-it notes going back every Friday. So I can tell you right now, on March 15th, 2024, 30-year fixed rate was a 6.875, no points, So I had this here, I just do it every Friday, stack it, you know,
It's great.
it's old school, but it works. I know my system and it works and it's what I
Does
do.
that give you like a little bit of clarity when someone calls you and they're talking about refinancing or stuff like that, and they start quoting things from the past, and you kind of have that at your fingertips, that kind of data, that knowledge, plus writing it, there's always a subconscious that goes into the back of your mind. Like, you kind of always have a finger to the pulse of where rates are and where they're kind of trending because of a simple technique like that. Would you agree?
It definitely helps, yeah. And don't get me wrong, I have my Excel spreadsheets with all my clients. Definitely keep notes and updates as far as what their loan amount was, the interest rate, that sort of thing. But I think as a loan officer, a lot of us are just programmed. We can remember clients' rates going back 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, I could tell if someone called me today and said, "Hey, do you remember me?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'd probably tell them their exact interest rate that we did, 10, 15 years ago. And it's not just me. I know a lot of loan officers that have that memory with their clients. It's kind of strange. A lot of us do it.
So as we round out here, I want to ask you a question, which is what are you most proud of, right? In the 20 plus years that you're doing this as your career, what is something that if like your kid came to you and said, "Hey dad, I respect you. I like you. I want to go into this business. Why should I?" Or someone that came to you, what are you most proud of for being in this business and have had your success over the years that really resonates with you?
First off, I would tell them, don't do this. It's not for the weak, man. It's probably was proud of the longevity that I've been in the business. I mean, we're all self-employed. Our income is really, you can only kind of foresee our income 45 to 60 days out. And so you have to always constantly be hustling. You have to always, you can't take a month off. You can't take, some time off. Like it's as go on vacation, vacations are tough, like a realtors too. You cannot go on vacation and just turn your phone off. And my family's been patient with me over the years. They understand that. There's so many times we're on vacation, we're at the dinner and I got to grab a phone call and it's just probably a stupid condition or something that's blowing up, but it can ruin a day sometimes, just mentally. But it's a longevity. It's a grind, and I wouldn't wish this on anybody. That's kind of why I want my kids to go to college and get a degree and get a job where they don't have to go through these daily stresses that we go through. It's a grind. It's a testament that anyone that's been doing this a long time, I give them a lot of praise, a lot of props. It's not easy, but you definitely can be rewarded by working hard and being consistent and being there for your clients, the realtors, and building relationships.
Yeah, I remember those days where back when I lived in New York and we would sometimes go away for a weekend. And this is like BlackBerry kind of days, right? So you kind of had, I wouldn't even call it a smartphone, or even when there were like emails originally on your phone, you weren't nearly as productive as you could be today on a phone for email,
Hmm.
right? And I'll never forget, like I would sit in the front, we had little kids in the back at the time, and I would have my laptop, my MiFi, I think it was called, because you could like have a carry pack that was like a Wi-Fi, and you're sitting there like doing emails or looking up a rate or like talking to a client with a headset and like in the car. And I remember vividly being like, I'm such a loser. I was like, I am not with my family. I'm not spending time with them. I'm that guy who's in the front seat of the car, and like it always nagged at me. And so I'm super grateful that as years have passed, yeah, still to today, like you said, we might be somewhere and you got to go grab a call or check on an email or something like that. But technology has really advanced in our industry. But to not forget where guys like you and I came from, where it was old school rate sheets, pen and paper, taking
Hmm.
applications on the back of a napkin, stuff like that, and then morphing into the technology and places that we worked for that really had embraced technology while others were still sitting on DOS word systems, right? All the
Yeah.
way to today, where a lot of it has caught up. I mean, we see that mostly in the broker model. Like today, the
Yeah.
guaranteed rates are companies like you and I spoke about that are very technology based and they're great. But then, like, you leave, like I did, and I wasn't sure what the world looks like. And then you meet someone like United Wholesale Mortgage, and you're like, head spins. And you're like, oh my God, you thought you saw technology in this industry? These guys are running like an infrastructure at the highest level of just like widget banging,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating to see how much technology has really changed our industry. And I'm sure you have felt the same, haven't you?
Oh, 100%. Technology's changed our total industry, and being self-employed like we are here, sorry for the sirens and the horns behind. The technology, we're self-employed. We can break away when we need to. We can go to, I never missed any of my kids' games because I had my phone. I had the flexibility to leave at 3 o'clock to go see my kids play basketball or volleyball. But if I need to go back after work and work till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I was able to, so in this industry, there are a lot of perks as far as having the freedom and the flexibility to do that. That's huge. And one thing also, you kind of brought up the UAMCO model, which one thing I love is the fact that this is kind of something behind the scenes, but it's a little thing that it's really important is the fact that with our setup here, with contract processing that we have, if you're at IMB or you have like a small, US bank, whatever, you have processors who are, normally getting paid by the hour, and there's sometimes you get a good one, sometimes you get a bad one. One thing with UAMCO, is a list of 30 processors or more that you can choose from, and they're all held accountable. So if they don't do a good job, if they don't perform well for you, you can just use another processor. So a processor as a loan officer can make or break a deal, can make or break your reputation. And I'll give a shout out to Vicky Lascalza, who I've been assigned to, who I use. I haven't wanted to use anybody else. She's amazing. And having that flexibility, because, if she wasn't working out great with me, if we did, sometimes you just don't mesh with people. I would have another option, 30 options to choose from. And they're working hard because they want you to come back to them and use them. And having that kind of support behind you allows us to go to our kids' games and take a break if leave early for the day or something like that if we need to, because we have support behind. Even though we're self-employed and independent, we have solid people behind the scenes, which is huge.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that you're bringing up because as you're saying it, it's like really resonating with. So at my peak during COVID, we were doing about 50 loans a month, which is an enormous amount of loans, just as
Yeah,
my individual production. And I remember being at an IMB where you had to go source, find, and hire that processor. You had to then go beg and plead that the company would hire them. And then it had to work out, like you're saying, personality mesh wise.
yeah,
And if it didn't, or there were kinks, it was on you to make those things work. And now you're beholden. You called in a major favor to your managers and bosses who took on this additional overhead. And if it didn't work out, you had to like force it to work out or let them go. And this is all on you. Like you're almost like running your own company while not really being in full control. And I
right.
think the point you're making here, which is third party processing, track processing, however they refer to it, it's all, first of all, it's a la carte, which means that someone that does a deal a month or someone that does 10 deals a month or someone that's taking off for a month, they don't have this overhead. When you have a deal, you use the processor and that processor gets paid on that deal that actually closed. So you're not investing money and time into someone whether or not they work out. And to your point, the flexibility, if personality wise, I mean, with all due respect, you're a very easygoing guy to get along with. So you make it very, very easy. But if there was someone that wasn't a personality fit or a work ethic fit, maybe for you would be something more similar. There is just who's next. It's next man up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who's
Y-
next? So that's a
And
great point.
you make a good point too, that if that loan isn't closed, they don't get paid either. So they're gonna work their butt off to make sure that deal closes on time. They want to keep us happy. It's a win-win situation when you get a solid team like that behind you, which is like the peace of mind with that is like so important. I really can't stress that enough. It's one of those things you don't really think about till like you're actually at a spot, but it's huge. It really is.
Yeah. And that's also similar to the account executives. Because remember when we were at IMBs, right? You have an account executive for whatever the banks that you're on there with, but you can never really have a relationship with them and they're not really motivated by anything. I have found that the account executives here on the wholesale side are well paid, well compensated, so therefore well motivated to
Yeah,
want to help us, to reach out
yeah,
to us, to want more of our business. How could we make a deal happen, right? How do we get stuff done here? So I have also found that not just from the processing standpoint, but being in this model, the account executives at the banks you send the loans to really work hard to get your
yeah,
business, earn your business, and close your business.
yeah. Response times are really impressive. People are on it. You blast out and you're getting 30 responses within 20 minutes. It's really
Yeah.
impressive.
Great. Any last stories, thoughts, or things that you might want to share before we wrap this up? Because you were great today.
Oh,
Really
thanks, man.
appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I mean, if I can stress anything to anyone watching this is I mean, I missed the broker world. I was looking for the right situation to come back. It's kind of fate that Michael and I reconnected again and with this model, this platform. Taking that jump to kind of come over here and be self-employed, it can be stressful. I waited too long to come back. I really did. I wish I would have done it 2 or 3 years ago. It's been like I've been really re-energized coming back into the market, and people can everyone I meet can tell. So Don't wait. Do it. If I can help out, call me. I'm always here to help out anybody that wants advice.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And that's where this podcast, which is the most mindset, is to your point. This is something that I came up with and I feel rejuvenated. I feel that this is the greatest platform to be on. And I think it's a mindset more than anything. Do you want to be super valued? Do you want to be valued at your highest value? Do you feel underappreciated where you are? Where can you be rejuvenated and feel like you're explaining today where you enjoy this job again, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that's really a mindset more than anything else. So thanks for joining me today. Great
Hey,
always
thanks for
hanging
having me,
out
man.
with you.
I really
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. Bye,
Talk to you
man.
soon.
Thanks, Michael.